Good evening, everyone, as you're coming into the Zoom meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We would like everyone to put yourselves on mute, please. It will really help us out if you do that, okay? All right, well, thank you very much again for being here. This is part of a process that we're going through on the Democratic Central Committee here in Montgomery County to make sure that we all educate ourselves on the ballot questions. There's 6 of them that appear on the ballot this time in the election. And I just want to say that, you know, we've had some discussions about this, and I think we agree that besides the presidential election, which we all know is terribly important, these questions are probably the most important thing on our ballot. Not that the race for Congress isn't important, but those are pretty, you know, those are going to be, we think, pretty good races for us. So these are issues that are going to affect us, you know, right where we live. I am in a minute going to introduce Erwin Rose, who is from the Democratic Central Committee. He's chairing our Ballot Question Advisory Committee. He's going to talk about the process. But before he does that, I just want to say that it's our intent, once we get to a decision on our position on these ballot questions, that we want to make sure that we let the voters of Montgomery County know, at least the Democratic voters of Montgomery County, we want them to know what our position is, and we're committed to getting the word out on that. As part of that process, we will be doing a mailing to all Montgomery County Democratic households. It's similar to what we've done in the past when we've sent out a sample ballot. We intend to do a mailing this time highlighting our position on these questions. So we're happy to do that, but we also, anybody who's interested in making sure that the word gets out on these ballot questions and what the effects will be on our lives, we ask you to consider helping us do that, because we're going to need some financial help to get that done. So I just put that out there because we will be asking for help in that endeavor. Before I turn it over to Erwin, excuse me, I should have said I'm Linda Foley, and I'm the chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee. For those of you who don't know me, we have other Central Committee members here on this Zoom call. In addition to the members of the Central Committee who are on the Ballot Question Advisory Committee, we also have Greg Wims, Dave Shoemaker, Susie Kaplan, and Moomin Bari are joining us tonight. And if I missed anybody on the Central Committee, please send me a private chat and I'll make sure that I acknowledge you. Anyway, this is where we are. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Erwin. Erwin, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is a public hearing being convened by the Montgomery County Democratic Party. I am the secretary of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, and I am the chair of the 2020 Ballot Questions Advisory Committee, which is organizing this process.
Erwin, 1 second. I'm sorry. I forgot one important thing that I want to make sure everybody knows before we start. I'm sorry, really sorry to interrupt you. I want to make sure everybody understands that this is being streamed live on Facebook and that it is being recorded, okay? And we will make the recording available. I'm sorry, Erwin, go ahead.
Okay. So welcome and thank you all for attending. Thank you to those of you who are planning to speak. And I want to first recognize the 13 members of the Ballot Questions Advisory Committee. This is a group of registered Democrats who volunteered to participate in developing the report that will be the basis for the decision by the party on whether or not we take positions on the ballot questions. There's 13 people, many of whom who did not work together previously, are working under a very intense deadline to produce a report that will inform the discussion in addition to the input that we received today from all of you who are speaking at this hearing. I just want to mention everyone by name to acknowledge their work. Teresa Baker, Linda Burgeon, Sharon Cranford, Harold Diamond, Scott Farnan, Sheldon Fishman, Elliot Greenwald, Corey Hartwich, Daniel Caroma, Jim Michaels, Lori Rodich, and Stephen Schiavone, excuse me. Let me just briefly explain the process that this is a part of. The party ultimately will decide on whether or not we take positions based on the process that I'm going to describe. The Central Committee appointed a ballot question advisory committee on August 11th. We solicited applications to serve on the committee through our newsletter over a course of 2 weeks. We received 13 applications total, and we approved all 13 applicants to serve on the committee, 7 of whom are members of the precinct organization, meaning they're a area coordinator, precinct chair, or vice chair. 4 of the members of the advisory committee are Central Committee members. I am the secretary of the Central Committee. We are holding this public hearing tonight as a chance to receive input from any registered Democrat interested in providing that input. We will prepare a written report that articulates arguments why the party should either decide to support or oppose any of the 4 ballot questions. And also we will articulate arguments why the party might choose to remain neutral for each ballot question. The report from the advisory committee will not make a recommendation. It will provide the background and analysis for the choices that the party will consider. The ballot question advisory committee will distribute the report to all members of the precinct organization and Central Committee members. We will also make the report publicly available at a minimum by posting it on the Central Committee's website. On September 15th, the precinct organization, which is made up of area coordinators, precinct chairs, and vice chairs, will meet to debate and vote on the party's position on each question, for, against, or no recommendation. The Central Committee will then meet immediately afterwards and debate and decide whether to affirm or not affirm the positions taken by the precinct organization. If the Central Committee affirms the position of the precinct organization on any question, that position becomes the official position of the party. If the Central Committee chooses not to affirm the position of the precinct organization, the position of the party on that question would be to remain neutral or no recommendation. Upon conclusion of that process, we'll have official positions on behalf of the County Democratic Party, and we will publicize those positions through the sample ballot that Linda mentioned, as well as on the website and other social media. There are 4 principal questions that will be on the ballot in Montgomery County at the county level. There are 2 pairs of questions. One pair involves county taxes. The other pair involves the structure of the county council districts. In addition to that, there are 2 state budget questions. One is about the development of a balanced budget through the process between the legislature and the governor, and the other involves commercial gaming. In addition to that, there will be 2 state judges who are up for a vote on whether or not they should be retained. Those are a type of ballot question that also will be on ballot statewide. We're now going to begin our public hearing. The structure for the agenda tonight is we're going to open with County Executive Elrich, if he is here, and he is going to address several questions, and we are providing the County Executive with 10 minutes total for his speaking time. We're then structuring the agenda around the questions. So we'll start with question A on county taxes. I'll explain that when we start that section. And we're going to have trying to group speakers around pro and con as much as possible, recognizing that some speakers may choose to address more than one question. So we'll proceed in that type of order, where we'll have speakers in favor of question A, any speakers opposing question A, then on and on for question B, C, D, and then after that, the state questions 1 and 2. And no one has indicated that they were interested in speaking about the state judges. Are there any questions about the process or the agenda for tonight? Actually, okay, I'm looking at the chat function now. Okay, I see the County Executive Elrich is here. I don't see any requests for the floor, any questions about the process or tonight's agenda. So I'd like to introduce County Executive Mark Elrich, who will speak for a total of, or maximum of 10 minutes.
Mark, we can't hear you. Mark, we can't hear you.
Mark, you need to unmute yourself.
You are unmuted, Mark, but we still can't hear you, so there's some problem with your audio. No, we can't hear you.
Well, while the county executive is working on his technical problem, let me just read questions A and B, which are the first pairs of questions that we're addressing. Question A is a charter amendment by active county council. And this is as it will appear on the ballot. It's titled Property Tax Limit Limit Tax Rate Increases. Amend section 305 of the county charter to prohibit the council from adopting a tax rate on real property that exceeds the tax rate on real property approved for the previous year, unless all current council members vote affirmatively for the increase. And then question B is titled Charter Amendment by Petition, Property Tax Limit Prohibit Override. Amend section 305 of the county charter to prohibit the county council from levying an ad valorem tax on real property that would produce total revenue, not including property tax revenue from certain enumerated sources, that exceeds the total revenue produced tax on real property in the preceding fiscal year, plus a percentage of the previous year's real property tax revenues that equals any increase in the consumer price index. Section 305 currently permits the county council to exceed the limit on real property tax revenue only upon the affirmative vote of all current council members. Mark, have we fixed your problem?
I think I'm
Yes.
close to fixing my problem. I have to get this thing out of the way now.
Okay, no, I hear you.
Yeah, I have to get all my other stuff is hiding now. There it is. Okay. So again, thank you all very much for giving me a few minutes tonight. I should be able to handle this in 10. I'm going to spend most of my time talking about the charter amendment, the yes on a position that we're taking. I think, everybody knows we're in difficult budgetary times, but it's not just because of COVID. And one of the things that we discovered in the county was that we are completely handcuffed in our ability to raise revenues. We're handcuffed in a way unlike any county in Virginia, unlike the District of Columbia, and unlike the other counties in Maryland. And it's because of the structure of our charter, which manufactures austerity to create a system that is actually broke on purpose. When I say this, it's because it's impossible to grow our economic base. Our increase in taxes is limited to the previous year's tax collections times the inflation rate. So just fast forward to what's going to happen in December when we're told that our inflation rate is 0, and when, because of property tax appeals, we're going to be looking at the lower property tax base. We are actually going to be able to raise less money at the very moment that we need to raise more money, because we're going to be down on revenues and we still have critical services we have to perform in the county. Other jurisdictions, their taxes rise as property values increase, as they bring in new businesses and the value of new businesses increases. It doesn't happen in Montgomery County. I have 10 million square feet of empty office space in Montgomery County, and if I filled it tomorrow, it would increase the taxable value of those properties, but the total taxes that I could raise would still be the previous limit. So all it does is redistribute who pays the money, but it doesn't give us any means of realizing our growth in our tax base. If we're not able to grow our tax base, then we're not going to be able to be competitive in this region. When Virginia made critical decisions about rezoning Tyson's, they also made some critical decisions about their taxes that enabled them to build the infrastructure they need. we can't build the infrastructure we need. We can no longer meet the demands of the school system. We cannot fund a transportation system, and we're just fundamentally limited in what we can do because of our limitations on taxes. This was brought on us 30 years ago by a county council that thought there was going to be inflation forever and was trying to beat an earlier Ficker amendment. And so they imposed this collar, not realizing what happens when inflation starts to go below the rate of the increase of cost of county government. The other thing they didn't consider was Montgomery County and the state of Maryland has a 3-year phase-in of property tax values. So one of the other things that's hit Montgomery County is if a project's value is phased in over 3 years, we only get the first year's addition as money that is exempt from this tax limit because it's new construction. The other 2 years of new construction revenues don't count toward building the base. They actually count against the total amount of money you raise. Another thing they didn't realize or didn't word correctly is when we give out tax credits, when Marriott gets a $5 million property tax credit for us for the jobs they're creating, then that $5 million reduces the taxable revenue that the county will collect. When Marriott eventually pays that $5 million, it counts against the limit that was created by the lower assessment. And so instead of adding to our tax revenues, it just displaces other monies. The net effect is we don't grow. The revenue limit is set by the chart, is set limited to the CIP inflation that's in our current charter. Last year it was 1.27%, this year it's likely to be nothing. This does not increase or decrease your property tax bill. Property tax bills still increase by the amount of a property's assessment, but the rate then gets set on all of the assessed values in order to reach this limit of last year's taxes times inflation. So there are some people who got 10% tax increases. There are actually people who got decreases last year because in readjusting the rate downward to account for additional assessed value, some people actually paid less. Commercial properties and residential properties, and some folks who got 10, 15% increases in their property values wind up paying more. We're in a real box, and if we're going to be able to compete with Virginia and build the infrastructure we need, let alone meet the current needs that we have today, we need to be out of this box. And that's what this amendment does. We have, two really bad outcomes possible. One is the Ficker amendment, which basically freezes the rate and says not even 9 members can overrule a cap on the rate. And the other worst scenario would be in the same situation where we are today, where we're not able to raise the money we need in order to do the things this county needs to do. So I will be blunt about this. The fate of this county and its ability to be competitive and meet the needs of our residents is in your hands. The way you vote on this and the work you put into making sure we get the tax revenues we need is going to determine where this county goes. Our school population has grown by 65% since 1990, and overall our population's up by 40%. We provide more services and have more challenges than ever. Our schools are facing greater challenges. You guys know about traffic congestion, and you know that we don't have a silver line or anything approaching that. We are in a really difficult time. And a few years ago, when the county raised taxes above the charter limit, which produced the rebellion that led to term limits, our rates are actually lower now than they were then. We weren't even able to keep the tax rate that we had because we have to keep lowering it as assessments go up. So we are in a situation, like I said, unlike any of our competitors, in any other county in the state of Maryland, and that is a real problem. So I need your help. The county needs your help. Just to reassure you about Montgomery County and its tax position in the universe, Northern Virginia relies on special purpose taxes plus their base property tax rate. In Northern Virginia, the base property tax rate is $1.14, which is 14 cents higher than us, 15 cents higher than us. On top of that, all commercial property gets about a 12-cent general property tax rate, 12 cents on top of the 114, 115. And if you're in Tyson's Corner it's another 40 cents or so on top of the base rate. So in Tyson's Corner, you're paying about $1.65 on your property taxes. If you were in DC, you'd be paying $1.85 on commercial property taxes. In Montgomery County, their rate's the same as the residential rate, which right now is just under $1. So the people that we compete against have the ability to raise revenues and build infrastructure. We're not able to show the community around us or outside of us that we're willing or able to put the infrastructure in place. And it's not surprising that we wind up losing businesses to jurisdictions that can put the infrastructure in place. So I'm urging you, please vote yes on question A and work against and vote against question B. Question B is pretty much, if you want Montgomery County to be a sleepy bedroom community and not be able to attract anybody else to the county, question B is the answer. If you want a future for Montgomery County where we can do the things that we have the base in place to do, but we need to be able to build infrastructure to capitalize it, then please vote for question A. Finally, I want to advocate for yes on question C and no on question D. I'm not going to discuss that a lot. Evan Glass is going to be coming up to support the council's compromise, which was 7 district seats and maintaining 4 at-large seats. Question D would result in all district seats and no at-large seats. I'll let Evan speak about that, but I'm asking you as well to support question A and vote no on B. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, County Executive Elrich. And you actually were a minute under the maximum time. We appreciate that very much.
I've never done that before.
No, we really appreciate your attending personally to speak.
Thank you.
Questions. And I'm sorry that we haven't scheduled time for Q&A, but the way we've structured this is really to spread out the time to give everyone a chance to present their statements without a lot of back and forth, without any back and forth, really.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I'm just glad we got a chance to talk tonight.
Okay. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Okay. For other speakers, we're allowing a maximum of 5 minutes each. And as I mentioned, we start with speakers who are at least primarily signed up to speak in favor of question A. And we're going to lead off with Council Member Andrew Friedson, who was the lead sponsor of the resolution that the council adopted to place this question on the ballot. Council Member Friedson.
Thank you, Erwin and Linda, the Ballot Question Advisory Committee, Central Committee members. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak about questions A and B tonight. I'm going to try my best to cover them both in this 5 minutes here, but I'll be back for question B if I don't quite get to it. The strength of our local party, first of all, starts with your commitment and advocacy, and as elected officials and Montgomery County Democrats, I just wanted to say how much we appreciate all of the hard work and volunteer time you put in to this and so many other efforts. It is critical now, as important as ever, with everything that we have at the national level at stake, and also, as Linda mentioned earlier, how important this election is going to be for the future of our county. I think the next 50 years of Montgomery County will be determined by what we do at the ballot box this fall, and that's why it's so important that the party, as it has before, takes a real leadership role in these issues, because on the ballot is a question of whether or not Montgomery County government can grow a modern economy and provide infrastructure and services that our residents and community deserve, and that have always been the hallmark of what makes Montgomery County the type of place that it is. Question A, which has the unanimous support of the county council, and as you just heard from the county executive, is simple, as tax policy should be. Your property tax rate next year will remain the same as your property tax rate this year, unless all 9 county council members vote to increase it. No complicated formulas, no need for a PhD in economic theory to calculate it. A cap on the rate we pay, not on the total revenue the county is permitted to receive. Tax revenues would increase exactly how they should when the tax base grows. The more our economy grows, the more the county will be able to invest in schools and transportation and in everyday services without even needing to raise tax rates. It's clear, it's fair, it directly aligns the county's financial footing with the strength and success of our county's residents and our county's businesses. And it doesn't create this situation, as you heard the county executive talk about earlier, where there's a redistribution which is inherently unfair based on an artificial cap, which is based off of something that has nothing to do with how well Montgomery County is or isn't doing economically. We all agree that the status quo isn't working. The answer then, of course, isn't to double down on 30 years of bad tax policy. The answer is to change it. Question A is the answer. It's about changing what doesn't work. It's about simplifying something that shouldn't be as complicated as it has been. You shouldn't have to hire a lawyer or an accountant to figure out what your property tax bill is. Robin Ficker's question B is about doubling down on a status quo that isn't working. It makes a bad policy that this county has been holding back this county for 30 years and makes it even worse. Question A is about betting on Montgomery County. Question B is joining Robin Ficker to bet against Montgomery County. Question A is about fiscal responsibility. Question B is about fiscal insanity. If you're frustrated by crowded schools, a lack of transportation improvements, and an economy that isn't growing as much as we need, the last thing we should be doing is doubling down on a failed policy. That's what Robin Ficker is proposing with question B, making the artificial tax cap formula we currently have and making it permanent, turning a bad public policy into a catastrophic one. Currently, the county employs a confusing formula to set the annual property tax rate, as you heard the county executive talk about earlier. Formulas based on prior collections and broad economic factors like inflation that are completely beyond our control and that artificially limit the county from receiving the full benefits of improving economic growth and economic activity. In other words, growing the tax base with a thriving with a thriving private sector doesn't generate the public sector resources to maintain and improve services in order to support it. By not receiving the full benefits of growing our local economy, we aren't encouraged to focus on it. And as a result, everybody in Montgomery County loses: residents, businesses, and the county itself. If passed, Mr. Ficker's proposal would risk our financial solvency and our coveted AAA bond rating. The AAA bond rating, which helps us build schools and fund the much needed transportation projects that keep our county moving and our economy going. It doesn't promote a thriving economy, but actually discourages the very economic growth we need to invest in critical infrastructure and address school overcrowding in a fiscally responsible way. That's the wrong choice at the worst possible time, threatening our ability to adequately address crises like the COVID-19 health emergency we're currently facing and the resulting economic crisis that looms behind it. We are going to face challenges in this county. We have to be equipped to meet those challenges, to be able to rise to the occasion, to provide the type of services, the type of quality of life, and the type of economic development and economic growth that we need to support our priorities. Remember, B is bad. A is the answer. Vote yes on A, vote no on B. Let's make sure that this fall we not only do what is necessary to defend and protect our republic, but we do what is necessary to defend and protect and create a future in our county that we can all be proud of. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Friesen. Just to explain the next section of the agenda, the speakers that I have signed up on these questions in order are Bruce Turnbull and then David Sears. We had a process in which we publicized this hearing and had a deadline both to register to attend and also a deadline to register to speak. We're going to provide a little flexibility for any elected officials who missed the deadline to speak. So are there any elected officials here who wanted to address questions A or B? Okay.
Erwin, if I could, this is Gabe Albernaz. I am going to primarily focus my attention on questions C and D, but just very quickly in less than 2 minutes, want to very much associate myself with the comments of my colleague, Councilmember Andrew Friesen, and with our county executive. We are all focused, as we should be, at the top of the ballot this year because we know what is at stake. But here locally, it's not hyperbole to say that every bit of that is at stake here as well. For those of you that don't know, I served for 12 years as the director of the Department of Recreation in Montgomery County and saw with my own 2 eyes the critical services and functions and programs that we have that significantly enhance the quality of life of all of our county residents, but especially those most vulnerable. And we all get what we pay for. And what we pay for through our hard-earned taxes and our revenue is a world-class library system, a world-class park system, safe streets, and a world-class education system. These investments don't just happen. And I can speak in the first person about the austerity that our departments show every year in ensuring that every dollar that they utilize to enhance programs and improve quality of life is treated preciously. And I was able to lead the Department of Recreation through some of our challenging times in the last recession, and can also speak in the first person now as a member of this council to acknowledge the tremendous needs that we are going to have within our social safety net and the support that our county residents will need both through the pandemic and through the recovery. Now is not the time to take so many steps back that would cripple us and tie both of our hands behind our back in our ability to address the needs of our residents at their greatest hour of need. So I plead with you, please focus on this and support question A and oppose question B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz. And we can still come back to you on the council district questions. So with that, we'll move forward to ask Bruce Turnbull to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, followed by David Sears, and then we'll move on to the council district questions. And if elected officials who are signed up primarily to speak on the council district questions want to address other questions as well at that time, that would be fine.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, okay, good. My name is Bruce Turnbull. I am a lifelong Democrat. I live in Bethesda, and I wanted to thank the MCDCC and the Special Ballot Committee for having this hearing and engaging in this process. As has been said, I want to echo that these questions are vitally important to our county's future. I would associate myself with the remarks of the county executive, Councilmember Friedson, Councilmember Albornoz, on both of the questions, and would just underline that I believe that there is strong support in the county from residents and organizations that represent a broad cross-section of the county for both support for question A and against question B. Question A is important because it would eliminate this, as was described, this sort of bizarre process that the council has to go through every year. It's a burdensome, needless process that to guess as to how much revenue is going to come in and then set the rate to make sure that you don't collect more than is needed in a given, more than is allowed in a given year. And it seems to us that the council, understandably, typically errs on the conservative side, so we don't even actually collect as much revenue as we could possibly collect under the charter. So it's a crazy system. Question A would alleviate that, would eliminate that that particular aspect, and would enable, as has been said, the county to collect to capture value from the overall increase in the county economic well-being. And the immediate increases likely from this, from question A, are modest, but at this point, candidly, any amount, any increase, is going to be vitally important for our county. With respect to question B, this is, as has been said, it was led by Robin Ficker, who has all kinds of problems with what he has proposed over the years, but this one is really taking the cake. To deprive the county of the ability to increase its revenues at all from the property tax is simply to eliminate one of the most basic functions of government. As has been said, there's going to be a need for a revenue in the coming year and 2 years and 3 years as we hopefully recover from the economic situation that the pandemic has put upon us. And that is absolutely vital, and the county residents are expecting it and need to have it, especially as Councilmember Albornoz said, those in most need. And as Councilmember Friedson said, the possibility, if you're the rating agency looking at a county that is unable to raise taxes by its charter, even if in the most dire of emergencies, unable to, that is something that is going to weigh heavily on the rating that those agencies give our bonds, and that is only going to increase the cost of the county doing its business and doing the capital improvements, whether they're schools or roads or transit systems or recreation facilities. That's essential. And the power to set taxes, as I said, is a fundamental part of our representative government system. And so to deprive our elected representatives of this is really a fundamentally anti-democratic move. I wanted to emphasize that I'm part of the Leadership Council of Jews United for Justice in Montgomery County, and JUFJ will be supporting the question A and opposing question B. We are part of and have spent a lot of time over the last few months, a coalition that will be specifically opposing question B. That coalition will have a strong grassroots effort and will have some ability to do online media advertising. And so this I think is an important element, but I wanted this group to know that there is broad county support for, opposition to question B and also support for question A. So thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Next, we have David Sears.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello. Okay, great. I'm going to be real fast because I totally agree with the 4 previous speakers. I think they made a really impassioned and articulate statement, and I totally agree. On question A, yes, let's simplify and rationalize the current system. On question B, well, all we need to know is Robin Ficker. Robin Ficker has done his best to destroy Montgomery County over the past few decades, and this is just another attempt. So that's it. That's my statement. Yes on A, no on B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sears. We appreciate your joining us to speak so clearly as well as so briefly. Let me just go through the agenda so all the speakers who are waiting understand where they fall in line, and especially given the issue about we're trying to structure the discussion around individual questions, but we realize several speakers want to address more than one set of questions. So what we have on the list right now is moving, unless there are any other speakers who want to address the county tax questions, we were going to move on to question C, which is one of the 2 questions on the structure of the county council. And question C is the one that was the result of a resolution adopted by the council, and we have Council Member Evan Glass scheduled to lead off on that. He was the lead sponsor of the resolution that the council adopted. Then after that, we would have Council Members Albornoz and Jawando also addressing that question, although I understand that Councilmember Jawando will want to address other questions as well. After that, on the same questions, but focusing, I believe, on question D, which is the citizen initiative on the council district composition, we have Marilyn Balcom, Bruce Turnbull, and David Sears. Then after that, we would be switching to the state questions. Question 1 is the balanced budget constitutional amendment. We have Delegate Mark Corman. signed up to speak on that. He was one of the lead co-sponsors of the resolution that was adopted by the General Assembly, I believe. We also have Delegate Eric Lutke on question 1, who I believe is also one of the lead co-sponsors. If there are others wanting to speak on question 1, we would entertain them then. And then finally, question 2 is the state question on sports gambling, or gaming as it's called. And we have Senator Craig Zucker, who is the lead sponsor of that resolution in the state Senate. So that's the lineup we have, and we'll proceed, but I'll pause at the end of each set of questions to see if there's anyone else who wants to address those questions. We should be okay on time. I appreciate everyone sticking to the 5-minute maximum so far, and if we keep that up, we actually should be out of here before 9 o'clock. So are there any other speakers who wanted to address the county tax questions, besides the ones who I've mentioned who are on the agenda next? No? Okay, then we're going to move on to question C, which is on the council districts. And perhaps I can ask Councilmember Glass to state the question when he leads off his remarks so that we're clear on the text of that question as it will appear on the ballot. Councilmember Glass?
Thank you, Erwin. I don't have the text language in front of me. If you have it, would you like to read that?
It's on the screen, Erwin. I can read it if you like.
Okay, I've got it. As Michael said, it's on this shared screen. I believe this is the way it will appear on the ballot. And it's charter amendment by act of county council. County council increased to 11 council members. Amend the county charter to expand the county council to consist of 11 rather than the current 9 council members. Increase from 5 to 7 the number of council districts, and elect 7 council members by district and 4 council members at large. Voters may vote for or against the charter amendment. Maybe it would help because they are closely related. So let me, Michael, if you could put this screen back up, let me read
Sure.
question D. I think that's helpful because they are essentially on the same topic. Okay, so question D, and I believe it's no longer pending petition verification. I believe it's been certified to be on the ballot. Charter amendment by petition, county council, alter council composition to 9 districts. Amend sections 102 and 103 of the county charter to divide the county into 9 rather than the current 5 council districts. Elect all council members by district rather than the current 5 by district and 4 at large, and reduce from 5 to 1 the number of council members each voter can vote for. Voters may vote for or against their charter amendment. So that is the way the text will appear on the ballots. Councilmember Glass?
Great, thank you very much, Erwin. And good evening, everybody. It's good to be among so many wonderful Democrats, and I want to thank all of you for your service to the residents of Montgomery County, where we know that we value fairness and honesty and diversity, especially as there's alternate programming going on as we conduct this important business. And I just want to state for the record that I support question A and oppose question B. Now, on to these questions regarding the composition of the council. You know, over the last number of weeks, I've spoken with some of you about this issue, and I'd be delighted to speak with as many of you who are interested. So don't hesitate to reach out to me personally or through my council email if you want to engage further about the makeup of the county council and the best way for the legislative branch here in Montgomery County to meet the needs of our growing and diverse community. And before I talk about the future of the council, let's start with the past. You know, this council, the Montgomery County Council, was first established in 1970. And all 7 members at that time were elected at large. And in that arrangement, 5 of those members were required to live in specific geographic areas, but all were elected at large by the entire county. And then in 1986, voters chose to increase the number of council seats from 7 to 9. And that's the makeup that we still have in place today, where 5 members are elected in a councilmatic district and 4 are elected at large. And one important element to that arrangement is that residents get to vote for 5 council members. 4 of them are at large and 1 of them is the district council member. And we know that residents had successfully gathered signatures to change this system, which would eliminate at-large positions and just create 9 districts. And on its face, that might seem like a sensible proposition, but it would actually be a step backwards here in Montgomery County. And there are 2 reasons why. First, establishing 9 districts, I think, would create a parochial system, which would pit communities against each other, because everyone's just looking out for their district. And second, it would diminish the voice of every resident by reducing the number of people they can vote for from 5 council members to just 1. And I'm not quite sure why anyone would want to give up 80% of their elected representation on the county council. So today, 30 years since this current system was enacted, we're on a precipice for change. The proposal that the council approved, question C, would increase the size of the council by adding 2 districts. And why do I think we should increase the size of the council? Well, since the last restructure was made in 1990, the residential population of Montgomery County has increased by nearly 50%. And that shift has resulted in us having some of the largest populated districts in the DC region, with more than 200,000 people per district. And so adding 2 districts would put us more in line with comparable jurisdictions. It would increase the diversity of the council, which is already the most diverse that it's ever been. And it would also allow residents to maintain an important component of our system, voting for more than 1 member of the council. And if we look at other jurisdictions, the District of Columbia, they have 8 districts and 4 at-large seats, and also a council presidency. Prince George's has had 9 districts for decades, and as recently as 2018, increased their council by adding 2 at-large seats, recognizing that 9 districts was not the optimal way to support the residents of Prince George's County. And then here in Montgomery County alone, we have jurisdictions, we have municipalities like the cities of Gaithersburg and Rockville that elect their councils in an at-large fashion without districts. And so I think we currently have a good system of mixing at-large and districts, but it can be improved upon. And so I know that over the last number of weeks, people have also asked me about the cost associated with adding 2 districts. Well, we all know that we need to invest in our democracy, and an investment that has not kept up with our population increases over the last 30 years. Just like we invest in early voting, just like we invest in mail drop boxes that are going to be populated throughout the county in this upcoming election, and just like we invest in public campaign financing, we also need to invest in our legislative branch, the council, to meet the demands of our growing population. And so I think that adding 2 districts is a step toward electoral progress by enhancing our responsiveness to the rapidly growing constituencies that we have, while also maintaining a key element of our current system, allowing every resident to vote for more than 1 member of the county council. And so I think that adding 2 districts is the better alternative for the voters of Montgomery County and our democratic process. And again, if any of you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me in any of the various ways you know how, and I'd be happy to engage in a conversation. So thank you. I yield back, Erwin.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Glass. We appreciate your joining us and taking the time to speak. We next have Councilmember Albornoz speaking on the council districts question. followed by Councilmember Jawando.
Well, thank you very much, Erwin. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you to the MCDCC. So for those of you that don't know, I had the privilege of serving on the MCDCC for 6 years, 2 as chair, and upon request, I will show you the scars to prove it. But it was a remarkable experience, and I know how important the role that all of you play is, and I want to express my appreciation to all of you, particularly now during this election, to be able to get the word out in this unusual time. When we're encouraging everyone to send in their ballots by mail and to vote as early as possible. So this is another ballot measure which will have significant implications for the future structure of our county. And I want to provide a little bit of context and background on where I'm coming at this from, not just as one of the 4 at-large members. I was born and raised here in Montgomery County. I have lived in Gaithersburg, Silver Spring, Bethesda, and now in Kensington with my wife and our 4 kids. And the campaign season 2 years ago was one of the most intense, but also rewarding of my life here in Montgomery County. I thought I knew a lot about the county, having worked as the director of the Recreation Department under the great Ike Leggett administration, and having lived all across the entire county. But it was in that year of campaigning where I went through literally 3 pairs of shoes, put thousands of miles on my car, and knocked on doors within communities that I didn't even know were there. And it was through that process that you realize it's such a unique perch to be at large, because while all of us are connected by issues around transportation and economic development and education, there are very unique needs, as we all know, within each community. But it gives you an appreciation of how connected all of these issues are. And so the at-large positions are very valuable in their ability, both during the campaign process, but then afterwards, once having been seated on the council, to better understand and see that perspective. I give a lot of credit to my district colleagues who do an absolutely outstanding job with constituent services and take their role and responsibility as a council member for the entire county, not just their districts, very seriously. But as an at-large member, it really does provide a perspective that I think is important to the cohesion of this very important legislative body. We have seen what chaos has brought to the White House and to our country. And moving backwards, taking multiple steps backwards to 9 districts will create chaos here in Montgomery County. And I understand the perspective, particularly of county residents from the northern part of the county that are frustrated that there haven't been more at-large members from the northern part of our county. But I will say this, and you're going to hear from her later, my good friend Marilyn Balcombe finished just a couple thousand votes short of being on this council. And I think the natural evolution of the census changes that we are seeing in the county will bring to bear a candidate, and I'm hoping Marilyn runs again, from the northern part of the county at large. And they will bring that perspective with them, but then also be able to serve the entire county. Our public finance system has greatly leveled the playing field. It's one of the main reasons we had 32 candidates in our race this last time around. I see that as tremendous progress, because you had people running for office who never dreamed of having the ability to do so before, but because of public finance, were able to. And as we saw in the article in the 7th State, and kudos to Adam Pognuko, who's doing a really fantastic job keeping us all straight and keeping tabs on the county, there were a number of special interests that are supporting this particular ballot measure, not as concerned about the geography of where we come from, but would like the opportunity to elect more people into the system. And so I want you to bear that in mind. And I also want you to bear in mind that I do agree that we have grown significantly from a population perspective here in Montgomery County. And it does warrant the addition of 2 additional seats. And that is why I am supporting ballot measure C and very much opposing ballot measure D. I would be testifying tonight whether I was an at-large member of the council or not. I love my job, I do. And yes, I would like to keep it. I love my job. I will say some days more than others. But I think it's critically important that we continue to move Montgomery County forward. And by voting for question C and opposed to question D, we will be able to achieve that. And so I want to thank the Central Committee, the Ballot Measure Review Committee, all of you. We all have to get to work in this election more so than ever before in my lifetime, both at the local and national level. And I'm confident with your support, we will continue to move Montgomery County forward. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz. Now, Councilmember Giwando.
He's with us by phone, Erwin. There he is.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, and I appreciate it, and I'm sorry if there's background noise. This is the best I could do on vacation, but it's good to be with you all, and I'm sure everyone's smiling. And so thank you for and I've got my family around me in the back, so you might hear some various other noises. But we're Democrats, and as we saw last week with our great convention, we're inclusive. We're the big tent, and so you guys, I know you'll understand. And it's great that I go after Gabe, because between us, we're talking about increasing members and population. We increased the children ratio on the council by 8 between the 4 kids each of us have. So it's good to be with all my colleagues, Councilmember Glass and Prieston and the county executive, and all of the great Democratic precinct officials and leaders, Erwin and your team, and Linda. Thank you all, and our advocates that I've heard, Dave and JUFJ and everybody else. Thank you all for all that you're doing for our party and for our county and for our state. I'm going to be very brief on questions A and B. I think it was laid out perfectly. The only thing I want to add, and I support the action that the council took to make sure that we have a rational tax policy that supports the great quality of life and services that we have in the county, and allows us to chart a path forward to grow. I would have preferred that we also would have lowered the threshold of 9 votes to raise taxes. I bring that up because I think it was the right decision politically not to include that at this time, because we'd be biting off 2 issues in which would be difficult to communicate. But there's no other Democratic body where it requires a 100% majority. Imagine if the House of Representatives, charged with allocating budget for the United States, had to have 435 members to initiate an appropriation or raise taxes or anything. It was just ridiculous. So I think we need to keep that in mind. I mention it also because it's connected to questions C and D, and I am very much in support of C and very much against question D. You have to think about the coalitions that's supporting those question D and why they're doing it. And Councilmember Albornoz mentioned this a little bit, and I'll be even more explicit. The same people who want to restrict, some of the same people who want to restrict our ability to have a rational tax policy are the same folks who want our voters to have less representation. And these are, in part of that coalition, a significant part, and the reason the Republican Party is supporting this initiative to go to 9 districts is because they want to have Republicans on the council. And look, I'm all for bipartisanship, but the reason they want to do that is not just for up-county representation, which I agree is something that will naturally occur, and with our proposal to add 7 districts, we'll have to, if we draw the lines in any sort of fair way, and I certainly am for drawing the lines in a fair way and a not gerrymandered way, would have to include an up-county seat as part of that, or at least majority up-county seat as part of that new drawing of the line. But you have Republicans that know that you need 9 votes to stop any raising of taxes, any additional revenue, and they want to try to get a gerrymandered seat that is a Republican seat, at least 1, if not 2, so that they can hold that up, so that they can stall government and not allow it to provide for the resource, for the needs, and provide the resources for the needs of our community. And I think you have to call that out, and that is, as Democrats, as folks who are supportive of the social contract and why government is in place to protect for the health, welfare, and safety, and prosperity and opportunity for our residents, that is a large driver, a large part of this coalition. That does not mean that there shouldn't be more County representation, and there aren't people that are supporting 9 districts for whom that's the primary reason. But I do not think that's the main driver. And so for that reason alone, as Democrats, we need to be very wary of it. But the good thing is we're not just saying no against D, we have a good alternative, because I also agree that we need more representation for our citizens, not less. Gabe and Evan and I and all of our council members have been working extremely hard, harder than I've ever worked before in my life. And I worked in the Obama White House when we had the economic recession, when we passed health care, to respond to the needs of our constituents, the 1.1 million plus that are in dire economic straits and are working very hard to try to stay afloat, and as we deal with this health pandemic. And it's been a hard burden. It's been a lot of work. And our districts at 250,000 people each are very large. And I think having some other help and having smaller districts around 160,000 or so, or whatever the number would go down to, would be good for democracy and be good for residents. And again, to Evan's point, we don't want to be taking away votes from people. We want to make sure that people can vote and have more representation, not less. That's what we're about as Democrats. So, and that's what this will do. You'll be able to vote for 6 members of the council, for 5 members of the council like you currently are, and that's a great thing. So thank you. I probably went a little over. I don't have the clock in front of me, but I appreciate the opportunity to testify and happy to talk with anybody about any more of these issues or anything else, because we need to continue our path forward on police reform, on our economic recovery, on growing our economy, on making sure folks have a place to live, all the things that we're doing. And that's at risk if we don't have the right votes on these ballot questions. So thank you for all your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Giwando, for taking the time to speak to us personally while you're on vacation with your family, and for all your kind words and for all your great work. So now moving forward on the same set of questions, but my understanding is the following speakers are focusing on question D, but certainly if they want to make reference to question C, that's absolutely fine. Again, asking everyone to keep your comments to maximum 5 minutes. We have Marilyn Balcom, followed by Bruce Turnbull and David Sears. Ms. Balcom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marilyn Balcom. I am a registered Democrat, have been my whole life. Tonight, I want to address the ballot initiative question D, but I will also mention question C. I live in the Up County. I live in Germantown, and as most of you know, I was a candidate for the 2018 County Council at-large race. I came in a close 5th out of 33 candidates, and as you can imagine, after a close loss, I spent considerable time, energy, and brain power studying the distribution of votes, and not only in the 2018 election, but in all the prior gubernatorial primary elections. I'll be the first to say that the Up County does not feel like it's represented in the County Council. We often feel left out in discussions. We're frustrated by legislators down county who assume they know what's best for our community. And through the years, there have been some really excellent at-large members, the current council inclusive of that. But we've also had some at-large members who were disengaged and not focused on the Up County. Historically, there's only been one at-large member, council member who's lived north of Rockville. So yes, we do want and need better representation, but to me, the answer is not abolishing the at-large positions and moving to 9 council districts. That's not the answer. The answer is, and always has been, voter participation. I recently wrote a piece for the 7th state entitled, "The Up County Doesn't Vote and Nobody Seems to Care." That's the issue. Council District 2 had 28% participation in the Democratic primary compared to 35% countywide, and as high as 45% in District 1. If the goal is a stronger democracy, we really need more people in the up-county to vote. The rationale behind the 9 districts for Montgomery County initiative is to break up the block of down-county representation and to give equal representation. On the surface, that might look good, but there are flaws in the logic. Primarily, the districts are going to be based on population after the 2020 census. Given the densely populated areas within the Beltway, the newly formed districts, most may be down county. There's no guarantee that those districts are going to be up county districts. There's no certainty with that. We also don't know how the districts are going to be formed. We have a district right now, as Councilmember Friedson knows, it's a north-south district. If the districts run north-south, we could actually lose power in the up county with the change to 9 districts. Eliminating the at-large positions, as several people have mentioned, eliminates representation. Right now, each of us has 5 votes on the county council. In the 9 district scenario, we only have 1 vote. That to me is loss of power. We also need to have to look at the function of the at-large county council members. Their job is to represent the entire county. Theoretically, every one of us has 5 council members right now in the county council. I don't want to lose that representation. Our district rep plus the 4 at large gives us a voting block. Eliminating the at-large members reduces our options to 1 person. The 9 district option doesn't address the fatal flaw with up-county representation. That fatal flaw is voter participation. In the 2018 Democratic primary, the up-county voted differently than the down-county voted. If more of those people from the up-county voted, the results from the at-large race may have been different. I've thought about that many times, and I've given up that ghost. The 9 districts is not the answer. I think that I do support question C, adding 2 additional districts. Given the size of the up-county, given the size of the total county, it does make sense to add 2 districts. And I do encourage the Central Committee to oppose this 9 districts. There will be a well-funded campaign to support question C. And if we don't have a counter campaign to defeat question C, I'm concerned that it may pass. So I would strongly encourage that the Central Committee vote no on D and vote yes on C. I thank you for your time. I would like to have a conversation on another day about voter participation in the up county because I think it's a critical issue. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Balcom. We appreciate all your work and thoughtful analysis of this. Now, Bruce Turnbull, followed by David Sears.
Thank you again for convening this process. I do want to emphasize the opposition to question D, but I also want to state my support for question C. I won't eliminate, I won't sort of reiterate what's been said. I think the points that have been made by the council members and by Ms. Balcom are very well made and all correct. I agree. It just seems to me that eliminating the at-large would wind up reducing the level of democracy and provide a recipe for dysfunction. I think that the fact that we have each of us today can vote for 5 members does give us both the sense of and the reality of more representation because there are more people who need to respond to our concerns as voters, not just as residents of the same general county. And problem of each district having 9 districts, winding up with each member being extremely parochial and could lead to undemocratic and unseemly horse trading for voters to promote particular projects or interests. And so that strikes me as a bad result. I do want to also indicate that Jews United for Justice, I'm here in my personal capacity because this is a partisan event, but I also, as a factual matter, want you all to be aware that Jews United for Justice and a number of other organizations, many of whom are also in the coalition I spoke of earlier about no on question B, are forming a coalition and will be mounting a campaign in support of question C and against question D. This campaign will be largely, I think, grassroots oriented, phone banking and texting and trying to have sort of town hall type meetings. I know Councilmember Glass is appearing at one the JOFJ is sponsoring next Thursday. Very much appreciate that. So there will be support for this, but it is vital that the Central Committee and the Democratic Party actually come out, take positions, make those positions well known, do the distribution, do whatever else can be done to address all of these ballot questions, because these are vital for our county's future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. Now, David Sears.
Good evening. I think that the previous speakers, I think there were 5 in front of me on C and D, they made a really strong argument why D is a very bad idea. And I totally agree. So I'm not going to say anything more about D. Those arguments, I'll just reiterate what I think was the common theme. Those arguments were that there is a county-wide perspective that an at-large council member brings to the table that's really important. And the word parochial was mentioned by probably all 5 of the previous speakers, and that's the problem with the district representation. It's parochial. Therefore, I asked the question, if moving from a 5-4, or let's put it a 4-5, 4 at-large, 5 district to a 9 district is really bad, tell me about moving from a 4-7, 4 at-large, 7 districts. It seems to me, while question D is a giant step in the wrong direction, question C is a moderate step in the wrong direction. So I come out thinking I want as much presence on the council of people that have the broad countywide perspective. And at the moment, that's 4 who are elected at large out of 9. And I don't want to change that to 4 out of 11. So therefore, I come down no on D with everybody else, but I also come down no on question C. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Sears. We appreciate your joining us and providing your input. We're now going to move to the state questions. And first, state question number 1, as will be listed on the ballot. I'm going to read, thankfully, the very brief text of the question as it will appear on the ballot, and then Delegate Mark Corman will address the question. The question 1, as it will appear on our ballot, will say constitutional amendment. Chapter 645 of the 2020 legislative session, state budget process. The proposed amendment authorizes the General Assembly in enacting a balanced budget bill for fiscal year 2024 and each fiscal year thereafter to increase, diminish, or add items, provided that the General Assembly may not exceed the total proposed budget as submitted by the governor. There is a second state question that is not directly related to that, so I'll read that text when we're ready for those speakers. Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Erwin, and thanks to the members of the advisory committee and the central committee. I did 7 years on the central committee, so I know the task before you well, and you have a pretty complicated set of questions to deal with this year, but I don't think this is one of them. As many of you know, Maryland has the strongest executive budget in the country. We are the only state legislature where the legislature cannot move money around within the budget or add funding to particular line items. And this would correct that problem and allow the state legislature in Maryland to, within the governor's total allocation, the total budget that he someday she sets, actually be able to move money around. It's actually bipartisan support for this. It's been introduced in the past by Republican legislators, Democratic legislators. I saw Rich Madalena on here earlier. He was a longtime sponsor of this legislation. PJ Hogan, who some of you may know, introduced this as both a Republican state senator and a Democratic state senator. The governor's current budget secretary introduced it when he was in the legislature in Maryland. This year's House sponsor, not that we were able to move, is Gabe Acevedo from Montgomery County. So if it's bipartisan, why should this body, the Montgomery County Democratic Party, support it? Well, one, the state legislature has not been all Republican since 1897, and no House has been Republican since 1917. So if you look at the sweep of history, we tend to have the legislature more than we have the governor's mansion. It allows us an opportunity to advance Democratic priorities. Two, although this would not become effective until the next governor, this current governor refused to release funds. We have a complicated system that I'm really not going to go into about how we can try to increase particular budget items we care about. It's been done for years under governors of both parties. Last year, this governor refused to release 76 line items of bipartisan funding that we identified the money for and set aside, but it was up to him whether or not to release it. This included money for things like pretrial services, school construction, rape kit tests, all sorts of things. And to make it even more spiteful, he did another weird maneuver where even though we had identified the money and set it aside, instead of releasing that money, he decided he would fund it in the following year's budget and come back to us and ask again that we just pass his proposal, even though we had already identified the money another way. Going back a little further, 1 year he refused to fund something called the Geographic Cost of Education Index, which is really important to Montgomery County's education budget. And so there are some Governor Hogan specific reasons and partisan reasons to support this. But at the end of the day, it's just putting Maryland on the same plane as 49 other state legislatures and giving us a power that I bet most of you already thought we had, which is to add and move money around within the budget, but not able to increase the deficit because we're stuck with the governor's overall allocation. So I know it's a little wonky and complicated. Shoot me an email. I left it in the comments if you have any questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to raise it before you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Corman. We appreciate your joining us tonight. Are there any other elected officials who would like to address this question? Okay, then we are going to move on to the final question, and we are close to the end of our event. Sorry.
It's Bruce Turnbull. I had submitted testimony on this one as well.
Okay, that's fine. I think we can accommodate you. I'm sorry we didn't have you. Let me just check. Was there anybody else, any other non-elected officials who had wanted to address question one? Let me just in terms of timing, let me check if there's anyone else. Okay, then we can accommodate Bruce Turnbull to also address question one, and then we'll move on to the final question of the evening, state question two. Go ahead, Mr. Turnbull.
Thank you. I will be extremely brief. I want to associate myself with my delegate, Mark Corman, and what he had to say on this. It seems to me that this is a very basic function of legislatures. And again, just as a point of information, Jews United for Justice will also be supporting this and including this in our campaigns. So thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, now we are getting close to the end. The last question that we have speakers addressing is state question two. It's also thankfully pretty short, so I will read the text as it will appear on the ballot. And then we have State Senator Craig Zucker signed up to speak on this question. Commercial Gaming Expansion Referendum, Chapter 492 of the 2020 legislative session. Expansion of commercial gaming, sports and event wagering. Do you approve the expansion of commercial gaming in the state of Maryland to authorize sports and events betting for the primary purpose of raising revenue for education? That is the way this question will appear on ballots throughout the state. Welcome Senator Craig Zucker, who is the lead sponsor of this resolution in the Senate, to place the question on the ballot.
Thank you very much, Erwin. Yes, I approve of that ballot question. No, I just want to thank you and Linda and your whole team for everything that you're doing this evening and everything that you plan to do around these ballot questions and then in this next election cycle. I sponsored this bill not only as a senator from Montgomery County, but as the chair of the Maryland Senate Democratic Caucus. What was great was, even though I'm a Democrat, this legislation passed unanimously out of the Senate and passed almost unanimously out of the House. I think 3 Republicans voted against it. So for me, it's an interesting question because it's not about whether or not gaming is going to come to Maryland. It's just a question of if we want to be in line with 22 other states and the District of Columbia, as well as 8 other states that are considering sports betting. And what is sports betting? Sports betting is the ability to go to a racetrack and bet on sports, or use a online platform, a mobile device to bet. So right now what we're seeing is someone who lives in Blair East or in downtown Silver Spring being able to walk 1 block to 16th Street, taking out their cell phone and get on the DC line and be able to bet. And those are Maryland residents betting in DC, and they'll soon be able to do it in Virginia. And we're losing a lot of tax dollars on that. And I like how you phrased it, Erwin, in terms of supporting education, because we're expecting, if this passes referendum, a minimum of $18 million coming into the Education Trust Fund, but it could be up to $40 million in the Education Trust Fund. Now, why is that important? Another hat that I wear in Annapolis is the chair of the subcommittee that reviews education spending. And the way the Education Trust Fund is funded is through casino revenue. And what we saw this last year was $150 million less that we were receiving in casino revenue. And this next year, we're expecting anywhere between $150 to $250 million less in revenue. So that's why anything that we can do that will help a little bit toward this is important. And that's why the Maryland State Education Association, they're affiliates of the Montgomery County Education Association. The Maryland State Education Association's executive committee is going to be recommending to their delegates to support both question 1 that you heard, that Delegate Corman presented, and then this one, because of the importance of not only the budget piece, but the funding of education. This is, again, just to keep us competitive with other states. Gaming is already here in Maryland, but this is another innovative way to not only get revenue for the state, but also there's a dark market out there where people are already doing this illegally. And it's an effort to capture some of that tax dollar. Again, this isn't a partisan issue. This passed unanimously in the Senate, but I do feel that us as Democrats who value the importance of education and understanding the effects of what COVID have had on our budget, this is an important step that we need to take in order to help toward our budget deficit. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions now, or please feel free to reach me offline.
Thank you very much, Senator Zucker. We had not planned on making this an open question and answer or discussion forum. It seemed a little bit unwieldy given the number of people who are attending and the number of speakers. So I encourage anyone who wants to post a chat, providing your email, as many of the elected officials have done, so people can follow up with any individuals they want to. We have posted a special email account that we've set up for the Ballot Questions Advisory Committee. I can post it again, but it's bqac2020@gmail.com. So if anybody didn't submit a statement but wants to, or if anybody would like to submit written comments, even though you did not speak tonight, we would welcome any kind of input that people want to submit to that email. Again, it's bqac2020@gmail.com. That will go to the Ballot Questions Advisory Committee of the County Democratic Party. And if you also have any questions or comments about the process, feel free to write to us at that email address. So I'm not going to drag this out. I think no one will complain if we end early. We had been prepared to run till 9 o'clock, but because we do have a little time and people have been disciplined about sticking to the 5 minutes, I can ask if there's anyone else who has not spoken who would like to give any brief comments on any of the questions. And if we have a few people, we'll just allocate a brief amount of time to accommodate any other speakers. I guess you could either try to speak up or send a chat if you want to have a chance to speak.
Hello, my name is William Gandler, and I don't think my video is showing up, but hopefully my audio is.
Thank you. Okay, noted. We'll allow you to speak, and let me just see if there's anyone else so we'll know how much time to allocate. Is there anyone else? Okay, then we can give Mr. Yeller the same 5 minutes that other speakers had, and then that will conclude the evening. I'll just, after Mr. Yeller finishes, I will just give very brief concluding remarks, as will Chair Foley, and we will definitely be out of here before 8:40 or 8:45. So Mr. Yeller?
I don't think we should be encouraging any more gambling. I think gambling is exploiting the weaknesses of vulnerable people. I think we should just outright raise taxes as opposed to take it from the weak-minded who can't resist the lure of money, which they probably will lose rather than gain. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments. As I said, we don't think this is a forum that's going to work well for an open discussion or questions and answers. So please feel free to send comments or questions to the Ballot Questions Advisory Committee, directly to any of the elected officials who spoke, or anyone else who's provided their email address. So really appreciate everyone attending. I hope it was useful to everyone who observed this hearing. I appreciate all the speakers taking the time to come personally present very thoughtful presentations on a wide range of questions. I believe we have recorded this hearing, and I know we have streamed it on Facebook Live, so it should be possible, someone can correct me, but I believe it will be possible for people to view this hearing on Facebook Live on the Central Committee's Facebook site. And I don't know if we'll be posting it as a link to the website or not, but certainly through Facebook. And maybe Chair Foley can explain whether we think it'll also be, the recording will be available on the website. We do have the text of the ballot questions on our Central Committee website, and there will be some additional material. So if you look under Vote 2020 on the mcdcc.org website, we'll be using that as our portal for public information. And as I said, the main events to conclude this process will be that the Ballot Question Advisory Committee will publish a report analyzing each of these questions with summaries, with arguments for why the party should go pro, con, or neutral on each of the questions. And our intention is to release that by September 1st. And then the final vote establishing the party positions will be on September 15th. And then we will move quickly to publicize the party's position on the sample ballot, on the website, hopefully on social media, and to the extent that we're doing campaign calling in county, we'll also promote the party position on these questions through our broader political organizing. So again, I really appreciate the work of everyone here and your attendance, and another special thank you to my 12 colleagues on the Ballot Questions Advisory Committee. With that, I want to turn it over to Chair Foley just for brief concluding remarks. Yeah,
Thank you, Erwin, and thank you for your leadership on this, in this important process, and your leadership of this committee. It's been a lot of work, I know, in a short amount of time. I also want to add my thanks to the volunteers that stepped up to serve on the Ballot Question Advisory Committee. This is a lot of work. This is not a showboat committee, and you're doing a great service to your county and to your party. I did want to say thank everyone for being here. I want to thank the elected officials and other interested people who came forward and made such eloquent presentations tonight. I know I learned a lot about these ballot questions, and I hope our committees did as well. And now it's our job to go out and spread the word among the public. And to that end, I do want to say again that I pledge that the Central Committee, we will do our job and we will get the word out as best we can. We do need your help to do that, because if we are going to reach out to every Democratic household in Montgomery County, we are going to need some additional resources. So please, please go on our website and donate to help us do that. You can do that at mcdcc.org/donate. No donation is too small. We would appreciate all the help we can get so that we can do an effective job here. Again, this won't be the last time that you hear from us on this, for sure. And perhaps we can do a public forum in the future. Once we solidify our positions, we can do a public forum and actually have a give and take, perhaps, about these questions. So again, everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your participation. And yeah, or your Blue Wave mask. I see that Michael Tardif has put that in the chat. We do have these Blue Wave masks that we're selling that help us raise money. So stay safe and support the Democrats at the same time. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you so very much. Everybody, please stay safe. And let's go. We're going to win this thing. We're going to elect these two, and we're going to make sure that our county is strong going forward into the future. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.